Fantasy Football.
Welcome into a Week 12 bonus podcast of Week 12 pickups brought to you by Next Level Radio here on Primetime Fantasy Football. I'm Adam Gorey. I'm joined by Steve Richards tonight. Joe will not be joining us for the bonus podcast, but Steve coming through and joining us for the bonus podcast. How you doing tonight, Steve?
Always ready and willing.
Before we get started, I just want to make mention of something that Next Level Radio needs your support here. We have what's called a t-shirt sale going on represent.com. You can go to represent.com/nextlevel. And what you can do to show your support for us to pay for or to help assist us with the fees that are included in running a podcast and the website. It's only $20 per t-shirt, which is actually pretty much what you're going to be paying anywhere else. Comes in red, blue, white, gray, and black. You have about 3 weeks. 19 days and 20 hours and 47 minutes as I look at it right now at 8:44 on a Monday night. Help us out. Go to represent.com/nextlevel. It's also the link you can find on our Facebook page and Twitter, facebook.com/nextlevelradio online, or Twitter's at NXTLevelRadio. You can go there and find the link and share it with your friends if you could. Buy a couple t-shirts if you want to share your support. Our goal is 25. We would love to surpass that goal. And you help make that possible. So we want to keep bringing you more primetime fantasy football, more beat writers from around the league, more next level showcast that Ben and I do each week, and then of course more guests from the entertainment industry as well. So to do that, we need a little bit of help from you, our listener. So we really appreciate your support and would love to see you sporting a next level t-shirt. So I know I'll be getting one, simply because I should probably have one anyway. So, while we're on the topic of checking things out, check out Steve's blog, StephenRichards.net. I already mentioned the Facebook and Twitter. You can go to nextlevelradioonline.com for various blogs, including Primetime Fantasy Football's blog that includes our weekly rankings. I do apologize. We didn't get last week's rankings up. I just ran out of time. Excuse me. And then you can also find old episodes of Primetime Fantasy Football and the Showcast, and then make sure you go to iTunes and subscribe. Just look for Next Level Radio, and also look for Primetime Fantasy Football, 2 separate pages there. And then, of course, make sure you check back on Wednesday, where Steve, Joe, and I will be recording Wednesday night the weekly podcast, giving you our high, lows, our zero to hero, our don't buy the hype, and whatnot. By the way, we're recording this as the Monday Night Football game is going on, so our pickups don't include anybody from that game. If Le'Veon Bell or somebody like that gets hurt, obviously you would pick up LeGarrette Blount. Maybe that's not obvious. So let's start out for the pickups from Sunday, at least, and Thursday. We're going to Steve and I are going to give you our top 3. So I guess, Steve, should we start at 3 and count down?
Yeah, that could work. I don't see why not.
Okay, well, why don't you give us your number 3 then?
Sure. For me, I think my number 3 would be Isaiah Crowell, the running back from Cleveland, who is he's part of a 3-headed monster, and it's kind of unpredictable at this point, but the pickings might not be beggars can't be choosers, so to speak. But he got the most carries in Week 11, and he did plenty with it. Put up some good numbers. So I think he's just their best, most talented runner in general. So despite the fact head coach Mike Pettin says they're not going to pick one running back, between him, Tate, and Terrence West, he definitely, I think, has the most talent, and he does the most with what he has, so to speak. He only had 14 carries, but that was the most against Houston, and he took it for 61 yards. Another thing is he did fumble, which hurts, obviously, fantasy purposes, but he wasn't punished for it. So it doesn't look like it's going to be one of those situations where he sees the bench and never comes back if he fumbles. So I think that he's definitely somebody to take a look at, and he's got a lot of upside, and somebody that can take it home for you while you're in the stretch run and heading into the fantasy playoffs. It might be somebody that you can hit on under the radar right now.
Yeah, what I like about Crowell, and he's going to be 3 on my list also, We might have the same three guys. The reason that I like him a lot this week is because he does play the Falcons next week, and as we know, their run defense is not great. So he's only 21 years old. If they're gonna ride him, I know Pettin said he was looking for explosiveness, so obviously Crowell must be showing that. I believe he had the best yards per carry out of the three running backs. So Terrence West got a brief glimpse at the starting position. But, I thought maybe West could run with it, and maybe now Crowell's going to run with it. But again, the reason he's number 3 is because, like he has said, it's kind of a week-to-week thing, it seems, over there. So he's number 3 because he has a good matchup this week, and as long as they stick with him, he's a guy you can plug right in. But like you said, or like we've mentioned a couple times, it could be short-lived. So it all depends how he does. But like you said, he wasn't punished for the fumble, so that's always a good sign.
Yeah, and he catches it out of the backfield as well. He's not like a big bruiser type of back. He had 2 catches for 30 yards as well, so he's pretty dynamic. Got that home run threat at least. Yeah,
and he almost went to Alabama. He went to Alabama State.
I'm not sure that's almost Alabama, but
let's give number 2. Like I said, it's probably going to be the same guy, but go ahead, Steve.
Sure. So number 2, I have Trey Mason out of the St. Louis Rams. Obviously, he, to me at least, he looked really good. It's a little surprising. He's exactly on the 50% owned mark, so that's a little bit surprising. So he certainly qualifies for this list. I'm not sure how much longer because of how good he looked on Sunday. So this might be the week to pick him up on your waiver wire, maybe your last chance. He ran for 113 yards. They gave him 29 carries, so he certainly is the guy that they chose during that game, despite the fact that people are thinking about committees in St. Louis, just like Cleveland. But he certainly is the guy right now in St. Louis, and he was supposed to have been the guy early. Well, I guess Zach Stacy was the guy early, but Trey Mason has always had this potential that people liked and saw in him. So he's a running back too, I think, for me down the stretch at least. They still got Oakland left and San Diego left. So anybody that gets 29 carries and turns it into 113 yards is certainly, for me at least, worth a look on a waiver wire. Obviously, they're looking to put work on his plate, and he's taking advantage of it. So he's definitely worth a look and worth a pickup for me if somebody hasn't picked him up already in your league.
Yep, and he's number 2 on my list as well. You probably should have picked him up by now simply because he's been getting the bulk of the work over there, and they continue to feed him. And like you said, 29 carries, 113 yards. It's just under a 4 yard per carry average. 29 carries is a lot. I know 119 or 113 looks good. But the thing that stuck out with me, it was against Denver, which is one of the best run defenses in the league, and it's now 3 straight games where he's had at least 18 touches. Against the Niners, he had a total of 20 touches. Against the Cardinals, he had a total of 18 touches, and then a total of 30 touches in this game. So, the Rams not the best, most high-powered offense I've ever seen, but definitely worth a pickup anytime you have a starting running back. And I don't think they're going to go. I know they're not going to go back to Zach Stacy, and I don't think Benny Cunningham's going to impede on his carries. So he's number 2 on my list as well. You want to go on to number 1?
Yeah, I think anytime somebody runs for 199 yards and 4 touchdowns, they could be number 1 on any list. Jonas Gray is number 1 on my waiver wire pickup list for this week. The guy at the New England Patriots running back. The shifty part about this is he's a Patriots running back, but you got to think when a guy runs for 199 yards and 4 touchdowns, he's going to get another chance in the next week. So you're probably going to need to have the number 1 claim because this guy made all the headlines. If he's not already picked up in your league, I saw a stat that he was only started in like 2% of leagues last week. So
not surprising.
A lot of people missed out on that, but nobody's going to be missing out going forward. So. But if you have the number 1 waiver claim, I would certainly take a shot on this guy and see if he can just certainly not repeat that performance, but maybe he's earned the trust of Belichick and he can get some touches and some carries going forward.
Yeah, much like Trey Mason, he's been, the guy they've been going to now against Denver, that great rush defense. He only rushed 12 times for 33 yards for about 3 yards per carry, 2.8. And you're going to see that's the only thing with him on a Bill Belichick team. There's going to be games like that he only gets 12. But against the Bears, he got 17 for 86 for 5.1, and then 38 for 199 for 5.2 against the Colts. And obviously those 4 touchdowns help. He's not involved in the passing game. That's Shane Vereen's thing. But when their game plan is to run, he's going to be the guy now with Ridley done for the season. So I would heed a little bit of caution this week. I believe he plays the Detroit Lions. So I don't know that I'm inserting him directly into my lineup, but I think when you get, if you're playoff bound or, if you have to, you can start him. But if you're playoff bound, I think he's going to pay dividends for you down the stretch. So I think that's the main reason he's number 1. Not only is he, like you said, 4 touchdowns, but he's on the most high-powered offense of those 3 running backs that we had mentioned. So
certainly, yeah. And then, you talk about the uncertainty of the Patriots offense, but during the 4 games he's actually been active, he's carried 55, or he's had 55% of the carries. He's had 60% in the last 3 games, and obviously he had a bunch last week. He had 84% of the carries. So his numbers seem to be trending upward, which is always a good thing.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, I mean,
he's certainly somebody to look at.
Like I said with Detroit, I could see them running the ball 15 times and throwing it 50 times. Because exactly. I could see them attacking that Lions secondary. But you never know. I mean, if you're pressed for running backs and you got to start them, I could see worse guys to start, like Zach Stacy. So
yeah, certainly.
Hey everybody, Ben Beck from Next Level, inviting you to join myself and Adam Gorey every Sunday for another episode of The Showcast. We bring you the best stories in pop culture, the newest stories in film and television, as well as movie reviews, what's going to be released in DVD, as well as coming to the box office for the weekend, and much, much more. All you have to do is search Next Level Radio under the iTunes Store and subscribe, or simply go to our website, www.nextlevelradioonline.com, and you can find our current shows as well as all of our past shows right there on the website. So we hope you join us every Sunday for another new episode of The Showcast.
This is Morris Levy, feature film producer and native New Yorker, and you're listening to Next Level Radio.
Thanks for listening to Primetime Fantasy Football. Send your questions into primetime@nextlevelradioonline.com. Primetime@nextlevelradioonline.com. And make sure to check out our weekly rankings, nextlevelradioonline.com, and go to the Primetime Fantasy Football tab. We'll post the link on Twitter and Facebook at NXT Level Radio or facebook.com/nextlevelradioonline.
Let's talk about a couple other guys that you might be looking to pick up this week. And obviously, these are guys that either we'll tell you if we would pick them up off free agency, wait for the waivers to clear, pick them up. If we would use a waiver claim on them, how high roughly we would go on them, and then if we would just pass on them altogether. So let's start off. We talked about Jonas Gray. Let's go to Josh McCown, Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback, doing pretty well since he's taken over the starting job. He completed 15 of 23 this past week for 288, 2 touchdowns, both of them to Mike Evans. Obviously, he's trending way up, Mike Evans is. So obviously, if you have a great quarterback, you're not too worried. But say you have a Mark Sanchez, you saw that performance last week, or you have, Cam Newton, maybe he had a much better week this week. But if you're in need of a quarterback, Steve, how high would you go? Or would you look for somebody else? Would you look for like a Drew Stanton? How high would you go for Josh McCown?
I think Josh McCown, depending on what kind of league you're in, obviously, but I think Josh McCown might be the best free agent option at quarterback at this point. I was looking through, and it's a lot of, it's guys like Alex Smith. Somebody might jump off the Sanchez bandwagon, so at that point you might be looking at matchups week to week to see who has the better matchup. But I think McCown is certainly one of the better options now. I think he scored 20 points in both of the games he's played in since coming back, at least in standard leagues. So hasn't turned the ball over too much. And he's playing the Bears next week. So
revenge game. I like that.
Revenge game and terrible secondary game. So he's got a good matchup. So I think if you're streaming, he certainly has a chance to be a solid option for you, at least next week, if not going forward past that.
Yeah, I mean, when he was on the Bears last week, I had, in a 2-quarterback league, I used him and rode him right into the playoffs, and I think I ended up winning that league with him as my second quarterback. You can definitely do worse. Like you said, there's not much better out there. And, he's played a full 4 games with the Bucs. I believe he got hurt in that game against the Falcons that he wasn't doing very well anyway. In those games, 16 points, 18 points, 22 points, and 20 points. So, I mean, if going off a guy that you're just picking up, I would use, and you might even be able to get away with not using a waiver claim on him at all, depending on the rest of your league. But I would definitely use a back half if I need a quarterback, because I actually think he can be pretty, not necessarily going to be putting up 20 points every week, but I think he can get you, depending on matchup, obviously, I think he can get you a solid 18 points, which is all you really ask for in a quarterback. You're not, you need a guy who's not going to get you 10 points. Yeah,
exactly, and he seems to be pretty consistent at least, which is much better than
he's a fantasy game manager.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. At this point, he's a better option than Cam Newton or Robert Griffin. So
yeah.
He certainly is more consistent than those guys. So if you get away from the name and look at the fact that you're starting Josh McCown over Cam Newton and Robert Griffin, who are hype machines at this point, then I think you could definitely find a better option.
Yeah, I would agree. Next up, we have Kenny Britt. He caught 4 passes for 128 yards and a touchdown in that win over the Broncos that pretty much nobody saw coming. He was targeted 7 times, and this is Sean Hill's first game, so that could be a sign of things to come, or it could not. So, Steve, if you need a wide receiver, how high would you go for Kenny Britt?
Yeah, I really like Kenny Britt, actually. I mean, it's that adage of the new quarterback might have a favorite target, and Kenny Britt certainly showed up as that for the new quarterback down in St. Louis. So I think Kenny Britt definitely has a chance to have a strong, I guess not second half, like fourth quarter, I guess they call it now, of a season. And I would probably go, I don't know, if I'm middle of the pack, like if I'm 5, 6, 7, 8, and I needed a wide receiver, if wide receiver is a weak spot for me, which could be tough because there's a lot of great wide receivers out there right now, but if I'm weak there, certainly in a 3 wide receiver league, I think Kenny Britt would be a priority for me just because of what happened last week with the different quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, if I need a wide receiver, I think I'm on board with that back half. Even if I don't need a wide receiver, and I've been down on Kenny Britt most of the season, as you know, not a huge fan of his just because of his past, but he is only 26 years old, and seeing a game like that, first game with Sean Hill coming into the mix, really, you got to like that, especially against the Broncos. So I think he's at least worth a flyer. I'm not throwing him in this week, but I think he's at least worth a flyer if you have an extra roster spot to put him in. And I know we talked about last week's podcast. We talked about guys that are droppable. Of course, a couple of them had really good games this week. That doesn't change my tune. Although Marcus Colston, with Cooks getting hurt, maybe that helps his value. I think it really helps Jimmy Graham's a little bit more. But like a guy like Ruben Randle, I know he had a good game, but I'm still not over infatuated with him. I'd still probably drop him for a guy like Kenny Britt because I think there's more upside there.
Yeah, I would agree.
So let's move on. Next to we have Andrew Hawkins, the wide receiver for Cleveland, and he. I think this was his first game back from injury, correct?
I'm not 100% sure on that. But.
Yeah, I think it was. I can't remember, but anyway, he caught 6 of 13 targets for 97 yards and a touchdown against the Titans. So that's good to see. The only thing hurting him is the fact that Josh Gordon is supposed to come back, although that might not hurt him. Jordan Cameron might come back as well. They're not really sure there. So again, wide receiver wise, who would you rather have? First off, Kenny Britt or Andrew Hawkins? And say Kenny Britt gets taken, how high would you go on Andrew Hawkins?
I put him on my list as a possible. Obviously, he didn't make the top 3, but I think it's an interesting concept, at least, just because of how well he played last week. He did miss week 10, but he played really well last week and was the number 1. But obviously, he's not the number 1 anymore with Josh Gordon coming back. But that could have the Golden Tate effect, where everybody's keys on the number 1 guy, and Hawkins ends up with a bunch of targets and a bunch of catches. So I think I'd put him squarely in with Kenny Britt, and I would be excited if I had either of them at this point, if I'm hurting at wide receiver. So I'm going to go ahead and put him in the same range and go ahead and drop the same guy. You know what I mean? Like if I have somebody who's droppable, then I would put in the waiver claim for Kenny Britt and Andrew Hawkins, and I would be dropping the same guy. So I get, one or the other.
One of the two, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at his stats so far this year. 8 for 87, 6 for 70, 7 for 87. He did have a down game against Tennessee, 3 for 28. Then against Jacksonville 5 for 112. Oakland, 7 for 88 and a touchdown. I think the game he got hurt, Tampa Bay, 3 for 34, and then this week 6 for 97 and a touchdown. So, good numbers. He's been putting up. He put up over 80 yards, 5 games that he's played so far this year. So you gotta like that. You gotta like the production. I might put. I don't know who I would put ahead of who, because I really am not sure if how much Josh Gordon hurts or helps Hawkins.
Right.
So maybe I would put Britt just above him right now, but I've been a Hawkins fan anyway, so it is very close, like you said.
I think just to answer the question, I guess, because I didn't really answer it, because I said I would do either, but I think I would put Hawkins in front. So, and I think that us splitting really means that you could have either one and be happy with
preference,
kind of on the same thing, yeah.
Yeah. And then next up, we have a couple of tight ends to wrap things up. First off, we'll start with Kobe Fleener. He caught 7 passes for 144. Obviously, a big night for him. The Patriots did game plan to kind of shut down T.Y. Hilton, so luck checked down a lot to Fleener and Wayne. Dwayne Allen got hurt with an ankle injury in the second quarter. Dwayne Allen, at this point, I believe they're saying he avoided a high ankle sprain. His status for Week 12 is a little bit unsure. So, as you know, Steve, tight ends, a little hard to come by unless you got one of the first couple guys. So, how high would you go on Dwayne Allen?
Kobe Fleener.
Sorry, Kobe Fleener.
Yeah. And I mean, even at this point, Julius Thomas is hurt now. So, I mean, even if you'd had one of the top guys, you might be hurting at tight end. And it's tough to find one. I think Fleener's as good an option as any. It's a real muddled group right in the middle, So it's, the top end and then everybody else. And the top end is only 2-3 guys at the most. And then everybody else, there's like 9 or 10 guys that you're trying to pick through. So I know I picked up Kyle Rudolph. If he's available, maybe go and pick him up. But you're kind of, at this point, I think you're just kind of taking shots on tight ends, and Kobe Fleener's as good as any to take a shot on. Went to the same college as Andrew Luck. They certainly have a familiarity there. Dwayne Allen was doing well, so maybe if Kobe Fleener is the only option available, then Kobe Fleener can fill right in for Dwayne Allen and put up some good numbers.
Yeah, like I told you off air, I picked up Kobe Fleener to get rid of Vernon Davis. Obviously, I picked him up at a good time, but I mean, I'd rather have him over Vernon Davis, even with Dwayne Allen back, because Vernon Davis has just disappeared off football fields.
Yeah, he has not been good.
Yeah, so that was only Fleener's third double-digit game. I'm still, if I need a tight end, I'm still willing to put in a decent waiver claim on him, probably right in the middle, like we are for most of these guys, but mainly because, if Dwayne Allen doesn't play, obviously you get a really good use of a tight end for Week 12, and even moving forward, he can be a solid tight end for you. I think he can get you relatively consistently 5, 6, 7 points in there, and then if he scores a touchdown, you're in the double digits. So I think he's probably, with Dwayne Allen out, he's definitely a top 10 tight end for me. With Dwayne Allen in, he's probably like a high end tight end too. Maybe even with all the mishmash with tight ends, I mean, he could even sneak into that tight end 1 range.
Yeah, you just never know, really. That's kind of the point of it. So you might as well take a flyer on him if you take him. And there's half a chance that you're set at every other position except tight end, because I know there's certainly teams like that, because tight end has been that hard to come by. So you could be happy with everybody else. So at that point, you say feel free to use your waiver claim on a tight end to try to get a good one.
Very true. And then finally, another tight end, we have Jermaine Gresham. Caught 2 of 3 targets for 13 yards, 2 touchdowns. So 2 catches, 2 touchdowns, and just 13 yards. In the win over the Saints this week for Cincinnati. Steve, are you putting in any type of waiver claim on him at all? I know 2 of 13 doesn't look very good. You had those 2 touchdowns. It helps. But maybe a red zone target?
Yeah, I mean, and it would be even worse because his second touchdown, he fumbled into the end zone and then recovered it himself to score the touchdown. So
exactly.
it could have been a lot worse than that. I think I'm going to lay off of Jermaine Gresham. I think A.J. Green and Sanu are certainly viable options through the air. But I don't know that Gresham is anything more than boomer bust, tight end dependent type of tight end, or touchdown dependent type of tight end. So it would be tough for me to go with him. He's gone over 50 yards only once this year so far. So he's kind of he's not really putting out the production. And those are the only 2 touchdowns he's had all year. So it might be tough to rely on that one.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. I'm going to take a pass on him as well. Definitely would rather have Kobe Fleener, even if Dwayne Allen plays. But I just pass on him. Like you said, touchdown dependent. I mean, I don't know if people still have Larry Donnell on their team, but
he scored a touchdown last week.
Yeah. So if you're going to go touchdown dependent, you might as well go him. And for those who weren't paying attention, I believe Jordan Reed is out again with another hamstring issue. Now RG3's been struggling, but that should help out Miles Paul a little bit.
Yeah, it's got possibilities, certainly. But, all of Washington's offense is a mishmash at this point. I think Deshaun Jackson only had 35 yards last week himself. So
yeah, Miles Paul only did have 2 catches for 18 yards, even with Jordan Reed getting hurt. But something to keep an eye on. Maybe that's a guy you could definitely get away with letting clear waivers if you're not trying to give up an early waiver spot.
Sure, yeah.
All right, so that's what we got for this week's pickups, week number 12. Again, want to remind you to go to represent.com/nextlevel. Help show your support. Buy a Next Level t-shirt. Really appreciate it. And share it with your friends on Facebook and Twitter. Retweet us at NXT Level Radio, facebook.com/nextlevelradio online. Check out Steve's blog, StephenRichards.net. Follow Steve at srichards31 on Twitter. Follow me at AdamNextLevel. And follow Joe at JoeyWeb32. Go to nextlevelradioonline.com and iTunes for past shows. Just look for Next Level Radio or Primetime Fantasy Football on iTunes. I think that's all we got. Just make sure you check out Wednesday night or Thursday morning for this week's podcast when Joe will join us to give you the high, lows, and all that good stuff. Steve, anything else to add before we get going?
No, that should do it. Thanks for listening to the shorter version. We'll talk to you later in the week.
Yeah, the bonus podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Let us know what you want to hear on Wednesday. Tweet us your questions. Email them primetime at nextlevelradioonline.com. We'll read them on the air for you and answer them before the week 12. So we'll see you on Wednesday. Hope you enjoyed it. See you in a couple days.